Welcome to the Obsidian Table, a place where me and my friends talk and debate about everyday life and other topics that fringe upon taboo. My name is Nova, and I will be your host. Today we have Captain Wetbeard and Beatrix Lace with me today. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
I'm doing pretty well, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, to let any of the new listeners know how the table works, I write out different topics that range from political nonsense to eclectic, relationships, workplace, basically anything, and toss them into a hat and pull at random when a guest tells me to stop. Most of the topics are on the table. Like, I haven't had one yet that is not going to be at the table. And this is completely off the cuff. So let's see what the table has for us today. Okay. Rock, paper, scissors. Who is going to poll this time and tell me who wins?
I am. The look Captain Wetbeard gave me just now when I decided that I was the one that was going to decide.
No, it's fair. I pulled last time.
Yeah. Anyway, stop.
Oh, I dropped it. Oh, there we go.
I was trying to make an escape.
Oh, the influence that Western entertainment industry versus the Eastern entertainment industry.
I have opinions.
So do I.
Well, what was the end of that question? Because I was too busy having stars in my eyes at the question to hear it in its full detail.
The influence that the Western entertainment industry has on our society versus the Eastern entertainment industry has on us. Basically, as the public to the consumers. There we go. That's the word.
Well, man, that's a really interesting one because there's different Eastern cultures that play on our society.
It's true, because we've gotten a lot of times when we think of, well, at least our generation, when we think of Eastern media, we think of anime and manga. But Eastern media goes back, I mean, as far as the trade of media in general, like Chinese
also,
films.
Yeah.
And you think of Chinese martial arts films, but there's also the Chinese art films.
You've got Chinese games
and Bollywood.
Oh, Bollywood's fucking awesome.
And now we're seeing more of a rise of South Korean media as well. And we got K-pop and we've got manhwa, which is the South Korean equivalent of manga.
We've also got Squirrel and Hedgehog if we want real Korean media.
Oh my gosh! although honestly, I've watched Squirrel and Hedgehog.
Yeah.
And as a propaganda device, it is actually pretty high quality and entertaining. Even though we can definitely say that the bad guys are very strongly representative or intended to represent our country.
Well, yeah, our country and also Japan and South Korea.
Yes. So
because I mean, it's a North Korean propaganda cartoon,
and it's actually really cute, and
there's a surprising amount of smut of one of the female villains.
Smut of her.
I kind of want to get I kind of want to commission like a big artistic nude of her like laying on a blanket and like put that up over the fireplace.
I mean, you can desire that as much as you want. I really don't. Well, that is a thing that we can discuss and negotiate. So yes, how Eastern media affects our society, though.
Well, North Korean media doesn't influence our society too much because of the fact that, first of all, not much of it makes it here. Second of all, when it does, it tends to be really, really niche, and you have to really go out of your way to find it. And third of all, we have such a strong propaganda against them that their culture just doesn't really impact us at all. We do have some impact from like other Eastern sources, such as China, Japan, South Korea, and India. I think that Hmm. There are a lot of really interesting debates to be handled in this topic because, I mean, for one, when you have a bunch of media coming in from an outside source, I mean, all media, whether it's domestic or from an international source, has some level of politics cooked into it. So to some degree, everything is propaganda. So I can definitely, to a degree, understand people who aren't necessarily huge fans of these other cultures changing our culture. But to me, I don't really like Western culture. This might be a little surprising to some viewers to hear me say that, but
Oh,
probably not any that
absolutely
are
not
super familiar
surprising.
with me. But yeah, I also don't really watch a lot of Western media or read very much in the way of Western literature. Most of what I engage with media wise, as far as film, TV shows, cartoons, and books and stuff like that, most of that's Eastern. As far as games, there's a pretty fair mix. Like a lot of the stuff I play comes from Western sources, but I do play some Asian things. Like for instance, Mahjong Soul is Chinese.
Right. Well, it's the Japanese style.
Well, yeah, it's the Japanese style of Mahjong, but the company is Chinese, and it's the Steam version of the game is only available in China and Hong Kong.
Right. But the oh goodness. Yeah, and I'd say in the spirit of the original question, how the different, if we're going to make strict divides, which in our very heavily leaning toward globalist society, it's kind of odd to make the distinction. I would say it's
Well, there's a really major difference
there is a difference
between Western culture and then general Eastern culture and then Chinese culture, because Chinese culture is very different from the rest of Asian cultures.
Right, but
To an extent. To an extent. Because if you think about it, so let's use Chinese culture influencing in the kung fu movies, in the fact that Jackie Chan came from China as their big martial arts star, where he's doing all of his own stunts. He's got his own stunt team that follows him around, and he has broken multitude of bones.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also take a look at the Japanese and South Korean music industry, where they are under strict regimen for keeping a fit physique. They have to look a certain way. They have to be able to dance hard choreography and still maintain vocal like control, to the point where most of the women don't have a period due to them being malnutritioned because of
well,
it. And then you look
that's,
at us.
I mean,
It's kind of similar to how our boy and girl bands are, except it's like 10 times worse.
the other thing too is that you have to keep in mind the way that our idols were in the 90s, in the 80s and the 90s. It was very much like that, because you
Yes.
look at how the standards of beauty in a society will shift and change, and Western media currently is in a phase of it's because everything goes in phases, and Western media is currently in a phase of valuing very very fit and strong looking, both in the men and the women, but the women also need to have their curves. But there are, I mean, I'm
more into the 50s aesthetic when it comes to beauty standards. I like my women to be soft and curvy, but not too large.
And
also on the shorter end.
But I got interrupted in the middle of what I was saying. Why'd you do that?
Beauty standards.
Yes, the beauty standards. But okay, that I retraced my steps. All right. So you've got the Japanese and South Korean idols currently having that very, very thin, petite frame, while also being able to maintain super high energy and vocal control. In the West, or at least here in the United States, in the media that I've seen, and it's probably about the same in Canada. I don't think it's that much different.
It's really not that much different from the US.
But I've seen things, because I follow a lot of cosplayers on Instagram that they make their living through sponsorships and things like that, and they do cosplay. But there's one in particular that I follow that she laid down the actual facts about being a fitness cosplay model, and she's like, you want to know how I got these abs? You want to know how I got these boobs? All right, I just had a double mastectomy, and I am 28, so I have abs because I am recovering from cancer, and these boobs are fake because my real ones tried to kill me. That's how I have abs. And I can tell you that most of the fitness models that you see are, if they have this kind of abdominal definition, they either have an eating disorder or some kind of health concern, because it's not healthy to and there are legitimate fitness models for actual fitness magazines that will go to a shoot in between hospital stays because they're so malnourished, but they have to maintain that low body fat but still push their bodies to have that muscle definition. There's different, when we're looking at the extremes, and when we're looking at the conventional industry, like the mainstream industry, it tends to push toward extremes in an effort to sell, and in order to sell to the most people. In that will often lead toward more unhealthy standards in general. But in terms of the influence of Western media versus Eastern media, in terms of beauty standards, I don't think that's... Well, I will say I very much appreciate the fact that Korean face masks are available just about everywhere, because I love those things.
Oh, man.
Oh my goodness. Their beauty products are just amazing.
They
work.
They work so well, and I've got that sensitive skin that can't deal with anything strange, and I have had no problems with those things. And I'm like, I am so happy that these things are available. It's really lovely.
Their makeup, their toothpaste, their hair products.
Oh my goodness, the makeup though, the makeup,
gorgeous.
It's so beautiful, but that's something that actually cracks me up, because you'll see people trying to imitate, like not just imitate, but actually mirror those looks that you'll see on these East Asian idols. And their complexions are very different from what a lot of people that are imitating them are. Their complexions are different. Their facial bone structure is different. The shape and structure of their eyes and their eyelids is really different. And so it's...
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. But on the flip side, you'll see East Asian idols and models using products to give themselves a false eyelid, so that their eyes look more like not Asian eyes. They're not hooded. They have that basically divot type of thing that gives their eyes definition. So I think that in particular is kind of a two-way street, and I find that really interesting and fascinating.
I mean, there's always this, it's kind of based on the grass is always greener mentality. Usually people have an attraction to the exotic. So in the US, you see a lot of women who wear makeup to make themselves look a little bit more Asian. In Asia, you see women who use makeup to try and make themselves look like Europeans.
Yeah. And
Or they'll tan themselves.
yeah.
So, in my opinion, Western the Western entertainment industry is going in a better direction than it was when we were growing up, definitely, because it was you had to be an hourglass model, you had to have blonde hair, you had to have tan skin, and you had to be a size 2 waist. If you didn't, you were fat.
In,
Oh, well,
That's not the case.
as far as body standards, it's going in a better direction. As far as the culture around it, I wouldn't necessarily say that it is.
But it's
because, like, one of the other things that I think is interesting about Eastern versus Western culture around entertainment and around just society in general is in the West, especially in the entertainment industries, we're seeing a push towards like really intense civility and towards behaving in a certain way and having certain beliefs. And it's becoming very much an intense echo chamber. Asia has been very resistant to that. They when people are like, no, you have to do things this way, or no, this thing shouldn't be allowed, then they're just like, okay, that's cute that you think that, Gaijin.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's more like there's less of an issue of an external force forcing them to comply with something that is not what they value.
Right, but I mean, Asian countries, their cultures generally don't value things like cancel culture. So
Yeah, no, that's very true, and I think that's actually if that's not if
I'm
cancel,
pretty sure cancel culture is probably in the hat.
I was going to say if that's not in the hat, it really ought to be. But
Yay, something else to add.
yeah, it definitely needs to be in the hat for sure, because that's a whole other can of worms that we will get into when that comes up.
True, but tangentially, I do want to mention that it's kind of interesting that Western media kind of pushes our culture more towards that kind of thing. But
sterility.
Sterility. Whereas Eastern culture is pushing in the exact opposite direction. It's like, no, we're going to be edgy, and cancel culture is big stupid.
Well, and you can see that as well in their, because of course, being in the industry that I am, which is the marketing space, I pay a lot of attention, and I've mentioned this in other episode. I think it was the first episode. I pay attention to advertisements and the way that they are structured, the way they're executed, and the advertisements that you find in East Asian cultures. Because I'm not as familiar with the kinds of advertisements in other parts of Asia other than Japan and South Korea.
I'm pretty familiar with all of them. Most of them follow the same sort of pattern.
Okay, so you've got things that are exceptionally strange that will catch your attention and not necessarily be full of the fine print that you get in the kinds of commercials that you see here in the West, which is, this is what it is. This is what it does. This is why you should buy this. But you should talk to your doctor because this is all the ways it can kill you.
Yeah.
So in other words, birth control,
any
warnings and side effects for birth control?
For like an asthma medication, for pain relievers.
I don't think you're allowed to advertise medications in Asia.
That would make sense. But yeah, it's... Now, I find advertising medications to be deeply unethical.
Yeah.
And terrifying.
There's no reason for it. It's the only reason that we have that in the U.S. is because we have such heavy corruption towards just so many different things. But in this case, the pharmaceutical industry, they've got really powerful lobbies. Really, it should be the same way it is with tobacco, that they're not allowed to put ads on TV. And that anywhere that advertises that it has medication, it all has to be in very just clean black and white print with no colorful bullshit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about how going back again to circling back to the original question, how it impacts society, Western media versus Eastern media. We've been talking a lot about Eastern media. Western media, from my perspective, as someone who was raised on effectively a mixed diet of Western and Eastern media, Western media is very, I'd say, media from both they'll have a moral type of thing to them, but it's much more heavy-handed in Western media than it is in Eastern media.
Well, yeah, also in Western media, 9 times out of 10, the moral has to do with obeying authority. Like, really, when you get down to it, Western media has more in common with fascist nations than it does with media in anywhere that you'd want to live.
Well, I mean, you also look at history and where fascism arose was in Europe, which we would consider the West.
Yeah.
But in the United States, we have like these puritanistic type of things where, like, I just remember all this media where, you know, being sexually active or being a little bit edgy automatically made, or having any sort of deviance from society's expected norm automatically put you in the role of villain.
Well, yeah.
And
I mean, the only gay people in film or anything for a long time, they had to be the villains.
And you saw that somewhat in Eastern media as well, because you'd have the whole gay coding thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't. It was definitely much more overt in Western media. Like, it was spoken about directly as much as it was encoded, and it was much more encoded in Eastern media that I saw at the time.
Western media doesn't really have subtlety.
No, Western media is about as subtle as a bag of hammers.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, another thing that is useful to discuss when talking about how the different broad genres of media impact society. Because if you've got Western media, which is all about being really brazen, and then you've got Eastern media, which is much more about subtlety, that's definitely going to have an impact on the society that embraces it. It's going to have an impact on the individuals that favor a particular media.
One interesting thing about a couple different types of Eastern media, first of all, in Western media, like, violence is just so very allowed on anything. It's just excessive everywhere. But sexuality is just so super repressed because of Puritanism. With Japan, you don't really have either one suppressed. You've got some pretty heavy extremes in both directions there.
You do have censorship, though.
You do, but it's mostly...
It's mostly really,
in pornography.
It's mostly in pornography, and it's like, you're drawing lines across dicks. We know what it is.
Yeah.
What are you doing pixelating that vulva?
You're making it white and a bright light.
It's like,
they've been talking about...
it's like, dang, if your dick is glowing in the dark, then maybe you should go to the doctor and not put that in me, though.
They've been talking about repealing their porn censorship laws for a while. They might end up doing that. That would be really cool.
Good.
But one thing I like about China, though, is their censorship goes in the opposite direction of ours because of how their culture is. They see sexuality as being a very natural thing, but they see violence as being a very unnatural thing. So they censor things like bones and blood and certain kinds of gore and dead bodies and that kind of stuff. So you see a lot of stuff that is very, very light on the violence. And usually when there is violence, there's a lot of subtlety to it. Whereas, like, sexuality and sensuality doesn't really have very much censorship at all in China, which is really interesting. And I think honestly makes a lot more sense than the way we do it. I'd rather be closer to Japan, but if I had to pick between Chinese censorship and American censorship in regard to media, I'd go with Chinese every time.
Well, and again, this is something that I brought up in another episode, was talking about how in ancient Chinese culture, sexuality was a major focus of their medicine. Was if you a lot of the goal was increasing your longevity by not necessarily controlling your sexuality per se, but balancing it. But it was a huge part of their medical focus was sexuality for both men and women. And it and sex itself, the sex act was seen as medicine.
It really fucking is, though.
It really is.
I always feel a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, really. But that's actually it's something that you can still see influencing media now, because if you look at, I mean, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily the equivalent of ancient European literature, not at least to that particular time period, that we had the ancient Chinese literature on medicine. We had ancient Greek medicine, but
ancient Greek medicine is better than a lot of the Eastern medicine that came, or a lot of the Western medicine that came after that.
I was going to say what
now, Eastern medicine was pretty decent long before Western medicine was.
I mean, Western medicine is still catching up to Eastern medicine.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that Nova can verify that. I'm sure she can attest to that.
Chinese medicine's pretty okay.
It is. So, from what I've been seeing, is that obviously I have no degree. I do not say I am a doctor. I'm not. Just saying this now to anybody who's listening, because I'm currently just taking clinical herbology. Western medicine treats the problem as a singular problem. It does not treat it as a whole. Like, I'm going to use Tylenol as, I still use it, but I'm going to use it as an example. Tylenol actually kills your stomach lining and kills your liver lining. You are not supposed to use it as often as most people do for headaches and so on and so forth.
Same with ibuprofen, it kills your kidneys. It's actually part of what killed my stepdad was overusing ibuprofen. It caused kidney failure.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you do not treat the thing as a whole in saying, okay, this can be caused by this and this is what's causing that, so we need to treat this entire section, and using terrain theory, that's literally what I'm learning about right now in the immune system, is that your gallbladder can affect your respiratory system, and your respiratory system can affect your immune system, and then your immune system will affect organ function, and so on and so forth, all the way down the line. I find that Eastern medicine, by it treating everything as a whole, works 5 times better. Now, I'm not saying Western medicine is just something and don't go use it. I'm not saying that, because there has been advances and there are things that we who live in the West can't just ignore, and we have to go and see somebody who is skilled in this to go see. But a lot of stuff like home remedies are out there for the common cold and the flu and headaches and depression and losing weight and all this type of stuff.
We have a lot of that stuff in the West, but it's mostly in Appalachia, because Appalachia has a lot of more holistic medicine.
Well, it's staying more true to its Celtic roots.
Well, yeah, Celtic and also Chinese, because of the fact that Appalachia also has a lot of Chinese who've been here for basically since the railroads were built.
That's true. And that's actually, we've gone quite a ways from the original topic, but it's still related.
Mm-hmm.
It's related.
It's quite related. But when you're talking about the distinction between Eastern medicine and Western medicine, I think that it's actually something that can apply as well, because Eastern medicine is very good from my perspective as somebody who I'm a retired massage therapist, and I specialized in medical massage, and I worked with doctors, and I worked with an acupuncturist and chiropractors and various practitioners of various kinds of medicine.
So when I open my own store, you're going to be first.
And I've helped people with some herbal remedies to different things because I know a fair bit about natural medicine.
Yeah, the thing that I was rambling to try and say is Eastern medicine is really good at the holistic approach, at keeping things in balance, at making subtle adjustments when things are not quite right. Western medicine is most appropriate for acute catastrophes. Things like really awful infections and things, and even I'd even go so far as to say cancer treatments as well, because even though it is deeply traumatic to the body, it is generally going to be more effective than what you get in Eastern, like traditional Eastern medicines. However,
I think with things like cancer, it's better to do both simultaneously.
It is. I would definitely agree with that. If you have the option of doing both simultaneously, that is the better option, in my opinion, and this opinion being informed by actually practitioners of all schools. But I mean, we're not giving medical advice, obviously, because none of us are doctors.
No,
this is just,
if you want to be a doctor, you have to go and buy an overpriced scam degree. So.
Oh my goodness. we'll not get into that.
No, that's a whole topic. About
cut out there for a second, so I couldn't even hear what you were saying.
Basically, there's another topic that you might want to put in the hat, which is the merits of university study versus independent study and apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So since we cut out for a second, we can circle back to the original topic again. Talking about the influences of Western media versus Eastern media. The point that I was rambling to try and get to.
Oh, before we go back to that, though, there's something I wanted to add to the other thing we were talking about. Okay, so what I wanted to say is basically the way I would describe Eastern medicine versus Western medicine is that if you were to compare it to cars, Eastern medicine is like going in to get your regular checkups to make sure that everything's working okay, whereas Western medicine is just replacing a part when it breaks.
That's about right.
Yeah.
And I was actually going to be circling back to that metaphor again, talking about medicine as an analog to media and its place in society. The kind of relationship that we have to our media is very different here than it is in much of the East, because we tend to see media as something to be consumed, whereas a lot of Eastern media seems to be much more focused on media is a thing to be expressed.
Mm-hmm.
And
they view it more like art.
Yeah, it's much more of a you end up getting basically, quote unquote, the same sort of thing, but because the intention behind its creation is different, you're going to end up with a product that feels very different. It's one of the reasons I actually prefer, to probably no one's surprise, I prefer Eastern media over Western media because I find it to have more subtlety, more substance to it, more nuance, and more room for open interpretations. Western media is very much that hammer, that bag of hammers, that this is the story that we are telling. This is the message we want you to learn from this particular thing. This is what this is. There's very little subtlety and subtext. And in Eastern media, it is basically a literature teacher's dream.
Part of the reason why that is, I think, in that Eastern media has a lot more depth to it and you find your own meanings, and Western media hammers home, this is the thing you're supposed to take away from it, is, again, it comes back to the purpose, right? In Eastern cultures, media is an art that's meant to enrich you and help you become more wise. Western media is more, it tends to be more like a propaganda tool. It's designed to have you brought more into the mainstream way of thinking.
It's
not to make you smarter, it's to make you dumber.
There's actually a really interesting thing. This is going to be a perhaps a small tangent, but I mean, it's not like we don't do those all the time. So as a writer, I've been working on developing my own YouTube channel, talking about basically the life of a writer and also writing tips and things like that. So anybody that's listening, there will be a link down in the description to my channel with some stuff. But there was a video that I saw on another channel that it's a channel that I've respected in general, but I very strongly disagreed with this writer's particular take. And this is a pretty respected writer in the space, in the writer tube space. And the thing that they said was talking about character arcs. And there are what we think of normally as the typical hero's journey, which is a positive character arc. Character is missing something, they go out, they seek it, they find it, they learn something, and they become a better person, and they are the hero. Then there's the negative character arc, which is typically defined as a character is seeking something, they go out, they learn things, and they become a darker character as a result. Often they tend to lean more toward villainous or not necessarily heroic at the very least. This particular person's interpretation of the negative character arc was one that I found kind of tragic, because what they said was a negative character arc basically means that a character encounters information and then believes a lie about the world. So basically the message of that is that if a character has a negative character arc and learns some truth, and then becomes a less bright, cheery, heroic person as a result, they are believing a lie, and that they are not they're not being honest with themselves and the nature of the world. And I think that is very strongly emphasized and reflected in Western media, that in order to actually have a quote-unquote satisfying ending, everyone has to live happily ever after, and everything needs to be tied up in a neat little bow, and
That's
the good guy and the good guys quote-unquote are very clearly defined, and they are always good, and they always have to win, and everything has to be sunshine.
That's not remotely how it works in Eastern media.
No.
In Eastern media, a lot of times, who is the villain and who is the hero is very much a matter of perspective, right? And you have people who are a protagonist, but I mean, you might think they're a decent person, or you might think they're a shithead, because at the end of the day, they're a person, and they have struggles that they overcome, and sometimes they win and sometimes they lose, but it's a closer representation to life.
Yeah. And you get in Western media, there's in writing, especially in writing fiction, there's the character concept of the Mary Sue, which is the character who is perfect at everything and can do no wrong and is wonderful.
So the modern protagonist.
And that, when I was in my early writing journey, when I was learning how to write and how to be a good writer, Mary Sues were very strongly discouraged, and there's still a trope that makes people kind of groan, even though Western media has very much leaned more heavily toward that kind of character, a character who will always end up saving the day, who and I will say there has been a trend toward gray characters, so-called, but in the end they're still they're pretty clearly intended to be seen as the good guys, when in reality I think a more effective, if we're going to make distinctions about gray characters and things like that, or heroes and villains, if we're going to make those kind of distinctions, I really don't think that those are useful distinctions anyway, because every human being, with no exceptions, is complicated, and no one is purely heroic or villainous. No one.
I agree
absolutely with that. No one. And
also, I'm closer to villainous than I am to heroic in general.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider myself to be more closely aligned with sort of anti-villainy, but definitely not heroic.
No, I'm far from heroic.
In other words, Deadpool.
Yeah, I mean, Deadpool is a Hufflepuff, so I mean, Hufflepuffs represent.
I mean, I'd probably be closer to, like, I don't know. Probably a little bit closer to, like, the Joker.
Yeah,
or,
well,
not the Joker in the way that he deals with like his partners, because I'm really kind and stuff.
In the way that, in your relationship to society.
In my relationship to society, I'm very much like the Joker.
Yeah, it's like
you get what you fucking deserve.
you say that, and then you're just a cinnamon bun.
I am.
You're just a cinnamon bun.
Well, what do you call it when you have a cinnamon bun that's like, I am maximum evil?
We call that adorable.
Yeah.
That's the official title of cinnamon bun that.
Yeah, I'm like the chibi Joker.
Don't hurt me! I will kill you, Batman! I swear.
All right, so this needs to be feature art of Captain cosplaying, or Captain as a chibi Joker.
A chibi Joker that's like burning down a building, going.
Well, you think about that meme with that cute little girl with that kind of smirk on her face, and there's a building burning behind her. Yeah, that's you.
No.
Yeah, that's you.
Pretty much.
It's like
that makes a whole lot of sense, and it tracks. That's an unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
Oh man. So, how do you guys feel about taking a break and doing another topic?
I am perfectly fine with this.
Yeah.
As everybody else.
Well, then I will be right back. I'm going to go use the restroom.
Okay, I will call it on this recording, and we'll see y'all in a second.
Nice.
Light up the board and reach up the stars. Right on the ship, follow us. Light up the board and reach up the stars. Right on the ship, follow us. Light up the board and reach up the stars. Right on the ship, follow us.
There we go. Okay, we're starting. Good.
Hooray!
We're good. Okay. It will be my turn because I have not ever picked one from the hat yet.
That's true.
Oh,
This will be special.
Okay.
Sounds like it was special. What do we got?
Birth control should be for sale over the counter.
Ooh.
Yes or no?
wait, what? This is a question?
It is a question, and I think actually that is actually a really complicated question because I think that Plan B and morning after pills should absolutely be available over the counter, but they should have like warning, like really
Well, all
intense.
the over the counter stuff has warning labels. It has to.
It has to. But regular birth control, like the pill, no, because there are too many possible health concerns that and
I mean,
things
there are with so many things over the counter, though.
there are, but with birth control pills, they have to be taken a very specific way. They have
At
to
a
be
very
taken.
specific time.
Yep, you have to take them at the same time of day, and the different, even among birth control pills, there are so many different ones, and each one is going to be more appropriate to certain medical histories and conditions. My experience with birth control pills, I was on a particular one when I was in college because I have undiagnosed endometriosis, but I just have never been able to afford the surgery to get the diagnosis. But my doctors all agreed that I had all the symptoms, and they're like, well, we'll get you on birth control, which should help some. And it did. The one that I took when I was in college helped really well, and I didn't get any weird symptoms with it. I gained a little bit of weight, but it was negligible. It was like 5 pounds, maybe 10, which I've always been a little bit chunkier, so that really didn't make much of a difference. But I got off of that one when I got off of my parents' health insurance, and got my own health insurance. That particular prescription wasn't covered, and I got on a different one. And that one was supposedly more appropriate for women who have PMDD and PMS, which I didn't really have, but it supposedly was better at controlling things like cramps and so forth. The problem with that particular one was that it was a slightly lower estrogen, which was another reason that they prescribed that one to me, because being a bit heavier at the time, it meant that I had a bit of a lower risk of really nasty side effects like strokes. Let me finish. With having and that particular one, because it was lower estrogen, I had breakthrough bleeding. If all these things were available over the counter, people would just be kind of switching back and forth among all sorts of different ones. And that can really mess things up and give you bad side effects.
Well, yeah. I guess anything really that has to do with hormones should probably be something you do with your doctor in general, really. Because of the fact that usually they have to be dealt with in a really particular way. And also they significantly change things in ways that might have really complicated problems. So yeah, I guess anything that's hormone related like that, generally speaking, you'll probably want to deal with a doctor for that. But for in the broad sense, birth control, there are a couple that you can't really do over the counter. Like you can't do over the counter injectables, so depot shots aren't really a thing.
IUDs you can't get over the counter.
I would not want to try to do an over-the-counter IUD.
Yeah, you need a doctor to put that in. That's basically
that was
surgery.
horrifying. It was such a horrifying experience getting it put in. I do not regret it. I absolute 10 out of 10 recommend the IUD for anybody that is able to get an IUD, because goddamn, it made everything so much better. I have a hormonal IUD, but yeah, That's not
Okay,
available.
can I
Yeah.
ask a quick question?
Yes.
Because again, this is on somewhat of the topic. Does your IUD basically make your periods non-existent? Because I have had multiple friends tell me this, and as somebody who is not on birth control pills or birth control at all, an IUD, something that lasts for 5 to 10 years, and I don't have to worry about it and just do a one-time payment, I will be happy for.
So
IUDs are magical.
IUDs are fucking magical. And to answer your question, your mileage may vary. For me, I've gotten some interesting side effects from mine. Um, I used to have just really long, really heavy, really painful periods, and now I have really bad PMS, which I didn't have before I got my IUD. But and it's terrible. It's so terrible. Everything is awful when I'm PMSing.
Can confirm.
Yeah. Captain is very patient.
But, it's almost like I grew up with a mom and a sister and not really a dad. So, and my mom mostly was dating women. So it's almost like I'm really used to dealing with women, and a lot of them have PMS. And, I've been with a lot of women in relationships, so often many at one time. So I'm very familiar with PMS. It's fine.
But my periods are really light, and I've never, I wouldn't say I've ever properly skipped a period or not had a period, but I've had periods where it's like
gets a little bit like, under the fingernails. It's nothing to take serious.
Yeah. but no, it's like super light. It's like a day, maybe two of really, really, really light spotting, and that's it.
Yeah.
But that was actually something I was really concerned about when I went to get my IUD, was because I'm paranoid of, because the IUD has the best
99.999%.
Yeah, it's basically a 1 in 1,000 chance of, if this is used correctly. That's the big caveat. If it's used correctly, as in the IUD's case, if it was inserted correctly and it is in place and it's there, you have a 1 in 1,000 chance of becoming pregnant in 1 year if you are sexually active. Now,
the downside is there's basically a suture in there, and that will poke under fingernails or poke into places you don't want it poked into.
Yeah, you've got the string.
Yeah, so usually my pro tip for people who are with someone who has an IUD is just kind of poke it to the back, the string, and then it's not in the way.
Yeah, poke it behind the cervix.
Yep.
But yeah,
otherwise you're going to get into sounding real fast.
Yeah. It's like, oh no. Oh no. Not my kink.
No, not mine either. I've had that happen a couple times, and she's just heard me go, "Damn it!"
And I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
But on the plus side, you can not use a condom and not pull out and not get her pregnant.
Yeah, but for me,
that does not protect you from.
It does not.
But it does give some nice messy surprise.
Oh my goodness! It's better than other messy surprises without any sort of birth control.
It's better than messy surprises that you have after Taco Bell too.
Oh no! Also, not my kink.
No, not mine either.
But the 1 in 1,000 was still kind of a little bit. It's like, it's not perfect. And so I was really careful to ask my doctor. I was like, hey, so I understand that sometimes a hormonal IUD can make it so that you don't have periods anymore. How will I know if I happen to be that 1 in 1,000 who actually gets pregnant on an IUD? So there are a couple of different things with the IUD that are a concern. If you have had an ectopic pregnancy in your past, you probably shouldn't get a hormonal IUD, because if you do get pregnant, the chances of it being an ectopic pregnancy are higher if you've already had an ectopic pregnancy.
Before you continue, can you explain what
Yes, an ectopic pregnancy is when a fertilized egg embeds in the fallopian tubes or elsewhere in the body, not in the uterus itself. Because the way that the IUD works is it makes it so, and that's one of the reasons that you get no period or a very light period, it makes it so that your uterus doesn't actually develop the endometrial lining that it would normally shed during a period. So the endometrial lining is what a fertilized egg can embed into to start developing the placenta when it in the uterus.
An egg that really, really, really wants to be a baby can lodge itself somewhere else.
Yes, and that can cause death. So it can be deadly. And I mentioned in a previous episode, my mother had an ectopic pregnancy when I was about 2.5 years old, which is why I became a nerd about fertility at a very young age. And so ectopic pregnancies can be very deadly. And because basically if a fertilized egg implants in the fallopian tube, it will continue to grow until it makes the fallopian tube burst. And that's internal bleeding. It's very bad. It's very painful. Bad juju.
Bad juju.
How do you know if you have one?
You'll usually, well, first of all, for most people, they will actually, it's kind of hit or miss as to whether or not you'll actually miss a period before you have the symptoms of an ectopic pregnancy, but usually you'll have some severe abdominal pain, like you're having a miscarriage. And you may start having bleeding as well. In my mother's case, it was just a sudden blinding pain and she could not move. Like she collapsed in the grocery store and had to be rushed to the hospital. And that is not abnormal for ectopic pregnancy.
So you'll know.
You'll know usually. You'll know, but you really don't, it's
serious.
It's critically serious. So that is a potential risk with hormonal IUDs. But again, it's a 1 in 1,000 chance of becoming pregnant at all. And the chances of having an ectopic pregnancy are higher than if you're not on any kind of birth control.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's likely.
Yeah, it's more likely, but that doesn't mean that it's a guarantee. But
because we don't use condoms, and you haven't had an ectopic pregnancy. So.
No,
and we've been together for 2 years. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, that's one of the things with birth control. And going back to the question, birth control that is hormonal really needs to be administered by a practicing physician.
Yeah. And a lot of birth control, you've got the pills. That's a thing that a person could take on their own, theoretically. But a lot of the other hormonal options are things that you stick inside your body in a different way. And a lot of that is stuff that those delivery methods can't be done over the counter anyway.
No. And
I would say once you start the pill, like once it's prescribed to you by your doctor, the perfect amount, and you go back and you're done your first set of pills and you have to go pick up another, you shouldn't have to make another doctor's appointment.
Yeah, you should just get a card.
Yeah,
you should just have a card with your prescription on it, and you hand it to the pharmacist at any pharmacy, and then it's over the counter like that. Because at that point, as long as it's been prescribed to you and they can fulfill the prescription and you haven't needed a change in it, let's say once a year you have to go back to your doctor to go and see if your hormones have changed, if you need a different dosage, if you need something different changed, and everything's in alignment, and then you get a new card, then you don't have to go to the doctor and wait for your prescription.
I think that's basically how it should be with any medication you're going to be staying on too. Like, I shouldn't have to go see a doctor more than once a year to get inhaler refills. I should just have a fucking card so I can go and just pick it up over the counter.
Honestly, I think that you should for things like your inhalers, you should not have to visit your doctor even that often.
Well, I mean, with stuff like that, your condition could be getting worse, and the dosage might need to change.
That's true. But
that's only if your condition is getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
If in this case it's birth control pills for females specifically, where we have to go and see a doctor every time.
Yeah, you should only need to do that once a year.
Yeah, you should only have to do that once a year, but you should have to do it once a year because it's good to get a full OBGYN or full gynecology checkup once a year.
Especially if you're on something hormonal.
If you're on something hormonal, if you're sexually active, get those pap smears.
Yeah, that's really crucial because, you could catch, cancers early and not have to die.
Yeah, I have a former coworker of mine who is my age, who had a cervical cancer that was caught very, very early, and but it was a very aggressive one. But because she got her checkups and they caught it and they were able to treat it, and she has a kid now, and things are good. So yeah, go to your doctor. It's a good thing.
Yeah, death is permanent.
Death is permanent.
Unless you're a necromancer. It's hard to raise a family unless you're a necromancer.
Literally.
But yeah, something else I wanted to say earlier, though. There are also a lot of options for birth control that aren't hormonal, and I think all of those should always be over the counter.
Other than the IUD.
Yeah, other than the IUD, obviously. That's a surgery.
It's not really a surgery, but it isn't. It's.
I consider it a surgery, but I also consider a colonoscopy a surgery because there's a medical implement being stuck inside your body.
Well, you're also given anesthesia for a colonoscopy. You're not given anesthesia for an IUD.
That's something that should be fucking corrected. There's no call for that cruelty.
Yeah.
From what I know also, and this is coming from somebody who has literally not gone and gotten one, and I'm a bad human being for not going for one, is that you don't get anesthesia for a pap smear either.
Why?
No, you don't, but it's different when you get an IUD inserted because they have to dilate your cervix to put it in.
Yes.
And
but
when
you're still having something shoved inside you that shouldn't be shoved inside you.
At least when you get a pap smear, they usually have the decency to lubricate the speculum.
Yeah.
But it's cold. From what I hear.
You need to go get you.
If you're saying from what I hear, you need to go see a gynecologist.
Do it. Yeah.
So,
Well, and here's the thing. A lot of time, I don't know, at least the last several times that I've gone, they've started using plastic ones, and those are not cold.
Oh, I didn't know there were plastic ones. Those would be so much cheaper to buy.
Yeah, because they... well, it's true, though. They buy them, and they buy them in bulk, and then they can just throw it away or recycle it. They'll have recycling options for some of them as well.
But my question, though, is if I bought one, would they be reusable?
I would not want that to be reused, no.
Okay.
No,
So I would still want to get a metal one.
Yes, just make sure you have... Well, I know you. I was going to say, make sure you warm it up first, but I know you.
Well, if I'm using a speculum, I'm not going to warm it up first.
Well, I have this whole... So... In RPGs that have dialogue with NPCs, there will often be multiple choices of things that you can potentially say in response to something the NPC has said. I have 12 different things that I can say in response to that, none of them kind.
Well, I also probably wouldn't be using it on you, so.
Well, no, that's true. But my statement still applies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah,
But yes, in case anybody needed it clarified, I am in fact a degenerate.
Things
I don't think we needed any clarification.
always need clarification.
No, we don't.
Well, we have to tell ourselves this because we're going to get the clarification whether we want it or need it or not.
Oh yeah.
That is also true.
So
That
if you just tell yourself that you need it, it makes it less terrible.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I tell myself.
Oh, also, if there's anybody listening who has not gotten their freaking shot to make sure that they don't get fucking warts, go get your damn shot.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Condoms don't block warts.
Yeah. And that's actually incredibly common. It's an incredibly common infection.
Yeah, three quarters of sexually active people in Huntington have it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's often asymptomatic. You won't know that you have it, and it is a thing that can cause cancer. So get the shot, get the vaccine. Just do it. Just do the thing.
I would just say get your full checkup and all your vaccines that are necessary.
Yeah, talk with your doctor and see what's appropriate for you and
If
do
you don't
the
have a
thing.
doctor, go get one.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
physically. Don't go steal a doctor. Go see a doctor.
Yeah, don't steal a doctor.
The look that I just shared with Captain Wetbeard here, though, was like, I kind of want to go steal a doctor now, though. Because
Well, I mean, it would be a lot cheaper, wouldn't it? Just keep them in the basement.
that would
Note to
probably
self,
actually reduce their work.
dig a basement.
That would probably reduce their workplace stress if we just kidnapped them and kept them in the basement. Be like, okay, I only have to
It would
work
also
about.
reduce your pay.
I'll pay them in Prangles.
Oh God.
Pringles and Mountain Dew.
No, they don't get Mountain Dew. They get off-brand store stuff.
Except RC Cola, that's only for you.
Yes, an RC Cola is only meant to be mixed with Crown Royal.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my goodness.
Yeah, I call it Twin Crowns. Crown Royal
In
and
case
Royal
it wasn't
Crown.
abundantly clear, Captain here is from Appalachia, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they can probably tell that from the way I speak.
But even so.
Maybe. Who
But
knows?
yeah, I mean, I think that as far as in the more broad sense, birth control things like condoms should be much easier to acquire because some stores have them behind glass counters and you have to ask for somebody to unlock the glass counter, and it's like if
And
you're
that's just embarrassing.
it's embarrassing, and if you are a teenager who is horny and you want to not catch a disease or a baby, it's
Well, I mean, they do that because they're small and teenagers steal them constantly.
if teenagers are stealing condoms, they need them.
Well, yeah, if you notice here in Huntington, they don't have the condoms in behind a glass thing because we have this wonderful charity here called the AIDS Task Force, and you can go there and they'll just give you a giant paper bag filled with condoms. You can also go to the health department and they'll give you a giant paper bag filled with condoms.
Yeah.
And most of the schools in the counselors area, they have big bowls of condoms. There's just condoms everywhere because Huntington at one point had an AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
I would say that generic condoms should be free.
But yeah,
Generic condoms should be free. I shouldn't have to pay $25 to $35 for a measly pack of condoms that have no fun on them.
how many fucking condoms are you getting? That's
Canadian dollars are different from American dollars.
Yeah, it's
well, yeah, they look like Monopoly money.
yes. But so for your stuff, it would probably be
Like 18 to 20, maybe
18.
25.
18 to $25. For us, it can range up and like if so the this is a conversation that is going to be weird if my family listens to this episode. They have flavored ones, they have ones with fridges, they have all the fun ones. By all means, put those
Studs.
behind the cape.
The studded are better than the ribbed.
Yeah, the ones with the studs and the dots are much more fun.
Yes.
Okay,
Just
good
pro
to know.
tip.
Yeah. Pro tip. Also, Don't be like me. Probably use dental dams. I've never used a dental dam.
Dental dams are good if you're going to perform oral sex on a person with a vulva, and you're not certain about their STI profile, like if they haven't gotten tested recently, use a dental dam. And there are also plenty of resources available, even on YouTube, on how to make your own dental dams out of condoms. So
yeah, I mean, you can also just use cellophane.
Cellophane doesn't work as well now. They changed the grade of the plastic.
Oh, that's lame.
Yeah, it's actually more permeable now, so it doesn't work now.
That sucks.
So yeah, don't
use cellophane.
Don't use cellophane.
Well, I mean, I never use dental dams anyway.
We're promoting safe sex.
Safer sex. There is no such thing as perfectly safe sex,
especially if choking's involved.
Well, obviously, that goes without saying.
Well, it should still be said.
It should be said.
It should be.
Sane-ish, sane enough, safe enough, and consensual.
My PSA is don't hang yourself when you jack off, because sometimes when people hang themselves, they die.
Yes. It's such a good PSA.
I'm not even going to try and... Don't try and choke your own self, please.
Exactly. Get a spotter.
Yeah. I mean, legit though. If you're into stuff that is considered, if you're into stuff that's considered edge play, stuff that is actually legitimately dangerous,
have a spotter.
Have a spotter, because you don't. That's not.
I did know a guy who got found in his closet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's not the way that you want to be remembered.
Or found.
I mean, it's not the worst way to be found, but it's among the worst.
Shit, I've known people who've been found in worse positions than that, but let's not go down that road.
No, that's too dark.
Yeah.
That's too dark. We're talking about happy things like sex. Let's but
it is important to highlight that sometimes some things can be dangerous and you need to take proper precautions.
Yeah.
That's part of why we're talking about safe sex.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, you should usually use a condom. You should, if you don't have a penis and you're with someone who has a penis, get them to use a condom. If they don't want to use a condom, then don't sleep with them, I guess. I mean, there's so many dicks out there for you to choose from. You don't have to go for the one attached to someone who doesn't care about your safety.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they cut out again.
Well, I was saying that... there's a lot of dicks to choose from. If your partner doesn't want to wear a condom, just pick a different penis, because there's plenty. You don't have to go with somebody who doesn't care about your safety.
Yeah.
Don't let them say, "Oh, but I'll never do this. If you love me, you'll let me do you raw." No.
If anyone ever says the words, "If you love me, then you'll do X," just leave them immediately.
Yeah.
Ultimatums are not fun.
No, ultimatums are not necessary. It's like,
they shouldn't be necessary.
Compromising isn't something you should be doing anyway. Just do what you want to do, and if you don't have a partner that wants to do what you want to do, find a different partner.
Yeah.
Or, get variety like I do. I've got a few girlfriends. It's pretty great.
Yeah, same. And, I mean, it's there's... When you're talking about compromise, there's definitely a difference between compromise and negotiation. There should definitely be room for negotiation in a serious relationship, or even a casual relationship where sex is involved. There should be room for negotiation and talking about things and seeing if you can come to common ground.
Yeah.
But
also sometimes, you might think you want something, but then when you actually talk about it, you realize, wait, no, actually that's pretty stupid.
Yeah, it's like that's nice in theory. That's nice for when I'm fantasizing while I'm getting myself off, but I don't actually want to do the thing.
I have a lot of things like that because I am a very degenerate person.
We know.
But, another thing that is good in theory is shower sex, because water is not good lubrication.
And also it's slippery, and that's really dangerous.
Yeah, I've fallen and smacked my head a couple times trying to do that. Never gonna try that again.
You can seriously hurt yourself in a shower if you are not standing properly. And
If you're
still-
gonna do shower
and
stuff, use a bath. Use a mat, one of the sticky mats that goes on the floor of the
Even-
shower.
Even so, it's like
It's still a bad idea.
it's still a bad idea because somebody's going to be standing on only one leg.
Yeah, but I mean, freedom is the freedom to make stupid decisions. So if you're gonna make stupid decisions, just make them as smart as possible.
Make the smart stupid.
Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of things that are really fucking dumb, and I mean, part of that is because some people make it their life's mission to make a lot of money. Some people make it their life's mission to eat a lot of different kinds of food. I made it my life's mission to do as many different kinds of things and get as many new experiences as possible. Some of those are really stupid ideas, but you know what? I did them because I wanted the experience. So I've done a lot of things that were dumb and or dangerous.
So if the captain here says maybe don't do the thing, you can probably take his word for it that it's not a thing to be done.
Yeah, I've done almost everything that you can do sexually, like unironically.
Yeah, like
Don't do
Yeah.
when he say no.
Yeah, if I say you don't want to do it, then really just assume I probably have actually done the thing and it was pretty fucking meh.
it's like let that stay in your fantasy.
Oh.
Don't ruin it by actually experiencing it.
Another tangential safe sex thing. If you're gonna put something in your butt, make sure that this I don't know from personal experience, just to be clear, but I know it because I know people who have done this and made this mistake. If you're gonna put something in your butt, make sure it has a base to it to where the entire thing can't go in your butt, because you would be shocked and surprised by how many people go to the ER having to get weird things removed from their butt because the whole thing went in their butt and then they couldn't get it out.
I had a
There's
friend.
literally a TV series called Sex Put Me into the ER.
Yeah, a lot of those are probably
don't.
things like Buzz Lightyear in their butt.
Yeah.
Yet, you don't want to end up on that TV show.
I had a friend who had to have a light bulb removed.
Yeah, that's oh
It broke.
yeah, that's a bad surgery.
Don't put hollow glass things in your butt.
Yeah, no. I had a
How this sort of went off on this topic. This is great.
well, I mean, there wasn't really a whole lot to discuss really as far as the basic question was concerned, but it was a good opportunity to educate people about don't do stupid things or shove stupid things up your butt.
Yeah. The good thing about the vagina, though, is that it actually
Don't
has
put light bulbs in your vagina.
Yeah, don't put anything hollow and glass inside your body. Yes, but also it has an end point. So at least with the vagina, if you put something weird in there that's not actually hazardous, you can usually fish it out.
I mean, the colon has an end point as well, but
The end point is your mouth.
heavens help you if you insert something that is less than 3 feet long.
Well, I mean, yeah, but with the vagina, I have lost rings and had to find them. I lost a watch one time. Well, I do fisting, so yeah, I lost a watch. I had to go back in there and find that.
We're learning so much about the captain right now. So much.
These things that are completely unsurprising to me, but are still somewhat horrifying.
Another pro tip. Be careful when you do stuff with ice, because ice can cause frostbite.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you bind anybody, make sure that anything that is bound is not turning colors, and make sure that they have good feeling and circulation.
Yep, circulation
because nerve
is really
damage
important.
is a real risk.
Nerve damage
In
and
other
also
words, do your freaking research.
yeah,
Yes.
do your
Why did
research.
I-
Do your research and check in with your partner when you're playing.
Yes.
Yes.
Safe words aren't really very informative. I recommend the red light, green light, yellow light.
Yellow.
Yeah, the stoplight method.
Yeah, it's very, very good. And also, don't be afraid to be like, hey, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? Do you want me to do anything different? Just have good communication. You're human beings. You can talk and stuff.
Yeah, it's like consenting adults should theoretically be able to, especially consenting adults should be able to actually communicate in some form or fashion to the person that they are being intimate with.
Mm-hmm.
It's important.
Also, if
you're-
somebody has a ball gag in their mouth, usually the safe method is just if they tap you on the arm or something.
yeah, like tapping out in mixed martial arts.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you're going to get into some really, really hardcore stuff, make sure that you really know the person and that you really trust the person and that you have protocols set up to check in with each other under different circumstances.
Yes.
Yes. Always communicate. There is no need for silence.
Also, even if whether you're in a monogamous relationship or not in a relationship at all, either way, it's good practice to every couple months go and get an STD checkup. Even if you trust the person and you're both only with each other, hey man, still do it, Get your STD checkup. It's just smart.
Yeah, because, it's, even if you trust the person, people will make mistakes sometimes, and you want to make sure that you're protected, you want to make sure that you're safe, and you want to make sure that you stay healthy, and you want to make sure that your partner stays healthy. Because, if your partner has made a mistake and has cheated on you and didn't and still wants to continue the relationship, and they didn't want to tell you, that they messed up, if you don't go and get a checkup, and if you don't find out that you have a really catastrophic STI until it's basically untreatable, that's only hurting both of you. So get your regular checkups.
Yeah, and also, to be honest, if you're in a monogamous relationship and you cheat, you should just actually talk about it anyway.
You should.
Don't assume that your partner's going to, but yeah, you should just be honest about it. Honesty can make anything work. And also, if you're doing monogamy, I don't really understand why, but that's a choice that you as an adult can make.
And it's, regardless of the nature of your relationship, having that open communication, having that foundation of trust, and knowing that you can trust your partner to not meet you with shame if you are discussing something that is a little bit difficult for you, regardless of what it is. Even if it, whether it's something as serious as the status of your relationship, monogamy, polyamory, open relationship, or closed relationship, whether it's something as heavy as that, or whether it's something as simple as, hey, we need to stop letting the dishes pile up though, and we're bad at it. Can we talk about this?
It's actually also, in my opinion, to make those kinds of things easier, and this does kind of to a degree come back to safe sex, because if you have better lines of communication, you're more likely to, thank you. If you have good lines of communication, you're more likely to have them be honest if they cheat anyway. So one thing I recommend is, instead of only saying that you have to talk when there's bad things, be like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about the thing, and just talk about light shit that you want to talk about. Don't let problems get bad before you talk about them. And also talk about when things are going right, and be like, hey, I wanted to talk to you because this thing is really working for me, and I want to keep doing this thing or do more of this thing. This thing is awesome. If you make it to where it's not always a bad thing when you want to talk with your significant other, you'll find you don't have anywhere near as many problems, and communication is a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
Bump.
I'm thinking of the cat that's like.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess we'll sort of do our last little bit roundup here. I'm going to say to those, my next episode, I'm actually going to start a new segment.
Ooh.
It's going to be Coffee Time With. So it's going to be me and one other person, and we're going to just talk about random shit for stuff. I'm not going to be pulling topics out of a hat, because that's specifically for the Obsidian table.
Neat.
So next episode is going to be Coffee Time with Maury. I've already confirmed with her that the next Tuesday that we record, it's going to be me and her.
Okay.
That's awesome.
And then we can do Captain and then Beatrix whenever you guys are free, obviously. And we'll just
I'm free almost all the time.
Basically.
Benefits of being a YouTuber.
Yes, but you know what I mean. I make
Yeah.
schedules.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to.
You
we
saw
have
my
to,
bulletin board. I do legit have a schedule, but it's mostly an upload schedule, not really a recording schedule.
and self-employed life. The only difficulty I have is the fact that I am an old lady who goes to bed at like 10:30, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, and
So-
I'm a weirdo who I might go to bed at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or I might go to bed at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah,
And part of that's because I'm not really meant to be an earthling. I live on a 28-hour
yeah, 20
schedule.
26 to 28 hours.
And I also don't really like the amount of days that we have in months.
That's a whole other rant and
Yeah.
ramble for another time. But
Yeah, that's more suitable for a coffee time than it is for one of these.
yeah, and
Yeah.
she's doing her outro.
Yeah,
It works,
it's so much
whatever.
fun.
I'm just happy everybody enjoys being on a podcast with me and that you guys actually enjoy it and I get to promote your guys's shit and you get to promote mine. All the shit shared family.
Man, speaking of promotion, I will go ahead and let you guys know. If you're interested in watching what I have to do, I do have a bit of a schedule. On Mondays, very soon, I'm going to start doing just Mahjong videos. So if you're interested in learning Mahjong, that might be a decent avenue for that. My Wednesdays are going to be like ongoing series sort of things where it's like doing long playthroughs that take multiple videos. Fridays are just going to be new games, collaborations with other people like Maury. And my Saturdays are just like tech stuff and meme bullshit.
And I have my blog on my website, and I've got my YouTube channel, which is mostly just about being a productive self-employed person, more specifically being a writer and the lifestyle of being a writer, as well as writing tips and things like that. So
Always useful.
if you're interested in that, you can check out my stuff.
Yeah, and I will make sure to have all their links in the description below and that all of their stuff is up to date because I've been copy pasting all your links so far.
Oh, my stuff's all up to date.
Good to know. But anyways, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us at the table today. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Beatrix, for joining us. We hope our listeners learned a little bit about our topics, and even though we went off topic on one, whatever. You learned some stuff, practice safe sex, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to leave your comments down below, and I would love to hear your own thoughts. The comment sections are open for discussion. Please put your comments down below.
Yes.
Join us next Friday on my channel for Coffee Time with Maury for some random stuff that we have in store. Who knows? Maury is
Delightful.
She is a
Yeah.
treasure.
Who knows? Alcohol might be involved. We don't know.
Nice.
Alcohol and coffee, a good combination.
Yeah, you gotta Irish that coffee up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, hope you all have a good night, or day, or afternoon, wherever you are and listening. Thank you, and see you at the stars.
Bye.